Okay, so next step is to add callback functions, and also right here we also adding Jpeg image object, which is a data object that is capable of dealing with Jpeg images. Okay, so let's simply open this file, main window.h. Of course, this is part of our project. Under source files, we have main window.h, and this time I would like to show you that when you drag and drop, if you drag and drop on top of this built-in browser, this file will be opened inside the browser, which is kind of interesting function. In order to open it as a source file, if you'd like to use drag and drop, you have to drop it on top of this bar, of the tab bar or tab strip, whatever the name of this part of the interface is. Here now it's opening, like right here, it's opening as a source file. Okay, so let's move it to a new vertical document group like this, and let's examine what we need. So to deal with images, of course, Fluid had no clue that we are going to populate this box with the content of the images, and we need to add these two includes. So right after we include Fluid window in our main window header file definition right here, we just insert these two includes. So these are parts of Fluid library. We're getting ready to use Jpeg image. The next thing that we want is to add this declaration of Jpeg image, which is universal type of image pointer. We will obviously need to create it, and this is why we use constructor. So we're going to add constructor to our main window so that we can create and take care of the image. And this is our new handler, right? So we can actually mark it as right here. I'll copy and paste, and here I'll mark it as event handlers, expecting that in the future there could be multiple events, but right now is just click of that button to show Jpeg image. This is already in place, and so we need another static callback as usual to plug in our button into our application. So this is the callback that will be invoked by Fulltext library. So this is pretty much all we need for our header file. So couple of includes, FL image, constructor, handler for button click, and callbacks, which are just plumbing to connect with the library. All right, so next thing that we do is that we open our implementation file, main window.cpp, which is located in the same directory. Just remember that once you have this browser, just be sure that if you want to copy and drag and drop this here, just make sure that you drag and drop is right on this strip right here, then the file is opening. So let's see what we need in this file. So in this file, of course, we begin with constructor. So let's just do this step by step. So somewhere at the top of this implementation file, we add our constructor. And initially, notice that this is a pointer. We are not going to make this constructor responsible for populating this a pointer to an image with anything rather than just set it equal null pointer. So we just initialize it with predictable value of this pointer set to all zeros. Now, of course, inside the show function, we need to tell the button that we want to plug in our callback, static callback. So this is from here, right? So from this new mark, we are going to be doing this in sequence. So edit right here. And I don't like these new comments in the actual code, because there's nothing new about this. This is just part of our functionality. All right, so but anyway, we tell the button, remember this is the name of our button, that we want to make sure that it calls our callback button show JPEG, which is a static function. Okay, so this is pretty consistent with everything that we did for a long time already. So callback window closing is still lingering from the very beginning of creation of this project originally, and now we're going to add our static callback. Okay, so let's I'll size it a little bit like this so that there's a little bit more vision into what we do. So this is of course the static callback. So inside the static callback, so this function is really called by the library. If you're wondering what this FL widget pointer is, it's actually pointer to the button. So if you want, so of course the callback provides pointer to the actual widget that generated this callback event, and you can, for instance, disable the button, you can make it invisible, you can do other things with the button. We're not interested in any of this, rather than just jumping as soon as possible back into the instance of our main window class, which we do by casting user data, which contains a pointer to our main window object. We cast it to main window pointer, and as soon as possible we delegate all the work to click button show JPEG, which is now this function right here. So we are going to add this function as well. So this is the actual click handler, and of course all of my handlers I prefer to keep them inside our class that handles the window, so it has access to everything in this window structure. So what we do, just for the debugging purposes, I display this message, and then here inside this click, what we do is that we say FL JPEG image. We create new FL JPEG image instance of this class, and this is the handler or utility class inside Fulltext library, which knows how to load and decode compression or decompress JPEG image and create like a bitmap structure in its memory so that it can be readily displayed in pixels format. So notice that we also specify this path to our image as a relative path. So let's just make sure that we are we're following, we need to understand where this file is. So the idea is that when we start this application, our current directory, the current directory of this application will be, let's bring up our file manager view, and recall that during our first laboratory exercise we discussed the structure of this laboratory setup of laboratory projects, and one of the subfolders is bin, and right here we're using debug configuration. So if we build this code right now, in fact let's observe it happening here, we're going to in fact I did not clean up some prior build, so I'll just manually remove these files. And now with everything in place, I'm actually going to build my project, and as a result of this build you see that we have populated this subfolder with lab06jpeg.exe. So I'm expecting that this debug subfolder corresponding to the debug build will be the current directory given to this executable when it's launched. Okay, so for instance I can double click this file right here. You see it starts the application, and let me close it for a second. And then from here, this is a relative path. So the first entry in this path is this double dot, 2 periods, which means that let's go from the current directory to its parent directory. Okay, and then we say that let's go from that directory to another parent, which is this next level. And then we say that let's go into JPEG, and yes, there is a JPEG, and in that JPEG we have a bird JPEG that apparently will be using for displaying in this application. So I'm expecting that this little picture will be shown as a result of us clicking this button. So what we do next is that we have to fit this picture inside our box. And the dimensions of the box, by all means, are different from the original size of JPEG. So the way to resize the image using this JPEG image thing is to actually use JPEG image object that we created, this JPEG image object, to make a copy with the corresponding width and height. And this new copy we're going to save as our JPEG image pointer, right? So this JPEG image inside main window is populated with a resized copy of the original image which we loaded from the original file. And this is the way to resize the image. And then notice that because we used new, we don't want any memory leaks, right away we get rid of this object, just a single object. We just say, okay, now once we have a resized version of what we need, this button should not create any kind of memory leak. We deallocate the original, which was only used to decompress the original image. And then we go to the box and we say, okay, box, take this image from us. And this image function, which is member function of JPEG, of the FL box, okay, we'll be able to render this image and display it. And then we also, apparently, the protocol is such that updating the image property of this box, remember it's just an empty box, it's very primitive, so it does not automatically refresh itself. We have to tell the window redraw. So this redraw will refresh the entire window. Okay, let's just run this application, control F5, and see how this thing behaves. So we say show JPEG. So here's the picture of a bird in the ocean, and we can our window is not resizable. It would be interesting to see how we could resize this. So if we click this button, the picture is actually redrawn. But remember, we're using double window and there's no flickering. So it's double window, like, you know, there are lots of pixels that have to be updated as a result of redrawing this picture and everything. So double window is quite nice. It's all optimized to work with our graphics card and its video memory to make sure that the flickering is eliminated and there's no flickering as we make updates. So anyway, so this is our laboratory number 6.